The NaviPro IT Break, 15 entertaining minutes with our experts on hot topics. They're designed to help you keep up to date on the latest IT trends.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this IT Break episode 52. My name is Pierre Tocci. I'm your host for today's discussion. I'm senior consultant at NaviPro, responsible for IT transformation strategies. And today my guest is Karim Lacasse, senior director of sales, Canada and US for Keysight. Good afternoon, Karim.
Good afternoon, Pierre. It's good to see you again.
Excellent, Karim. Not so long ago, we did have 15 minutes together. And today you have chosen a topic of security challenges enterprises are facing in today's environment. And you picked the topic of being proactive in threat mitigation in production networks. Karim, right. First question I'll throw at you. Why are we not proactive? I thought our defense team was.
I think some companies are definitely proactive in that environment. Looking back at the culture and looking back at how things are kind of managed in a network or even in the security operations, a lot of it is reactive. So we're passively watching the environment, we're capturing data, we're capturing events, and then we react and we fix and we patch. So there's this approach is probably the approach that most of the IT teams are using today. Now, things have changed in the last few years where you have more, I would say, active testing or pen testing. And we, even with that, we know there are three big challenges. The first one is most of the companies out there have difficulty recognizing attacks, right? It takes many days to realize that this is going on for exfiltration, for example. The second challenge is the network is increasing in complexity. It's more dynamic, and same goes with the security toolchain. And then third is the limited resources, either from spending and investment, but also from the people. Right. So these three challenges are forcing everyone to rethink how they approach network security. And similar to what we had talked about on our previous podcast regarding proactive testing of the network, we're kind of shifting gears towards security now. So how can you potentially attack your network safely and measure how your environment is doing on a continuous basis?
When you say attacking your network I understand that the purpose of a pen test is to throw stuff at the environment and see where the holes are. Obviously, no organization will have 100%, defense mechanism or win rate or fail rate, depending how we look at this. Okay, so stuff will happen. So, what is the difference between proactive and doing a pen test?
That's right. So, pen testing has changed quite a bit, and it was definitely a game changer, let's say, a couple of years ago. And when you think about it, it's kind of taking a snapshot of the environment. It's fairly complex. Usually there's a third party that comes in and does an assessment of your environment, and that takes quite a bit of time, and it's not cheap to do that. I mean, some of the assessments that we see can cost between $50,000 and $100,000 per assessment, depending on how big your network is, right? So, depending on the scope, usually it has to be done in certain cases for audit reasons, but pen testing a couple times a year is not cutting it, right? So, if you could take a snapshot in January of what's going on, and then what happens during 30 days or maybe 3 months, maybe you do that once per quarter. There's a lot that happens between that snapshot and today, simply because the landscape is changing so quickly. So similar to red teaming, where you're kind of proactively and you're maintaining a team in your organization that attacks your network, that's also fairly expensive. You need to maintain a full team of engineers and analysts that are need to be trained. So that is also a really good way to be proactive, but also fairly expensive.
One thing that I noticed is that when you do pen test for what is going on today.
That's right.
From what I understand from smarter network monitoring is that we can also consider normal or abnormal behavior within a network. We've east-west traffic, what's going on. Is this the kind of proactivity that you can bring to the table?
Yes. I mean, so looking at some of the challenges that I highlighted, where the network is very dynamic, it's changing, there's tons of data, even more. There's a lot more security tools and more technologies around that environment. There's tons of money and things that are kind of thrown at this. The fact is that you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So security in the past was kind of hard to measure. Give it a grade and figure out, okay, how am I doing today? I'm gonna change the configuration. I'm gonna patch my network. I'm gonna do a bunch of things, and then I'm gonna measure again, right? Most of customers out there didn't have the ability to do that, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we want to do. That's what we provide. Is we provide you the ability to run a battery of tests that is giving you exactly what's going on in the network. You do what you need to do in terms of managing your security toolchain and your environment, and you run these exact same tests afterwards. And then you're able to see, am I in a better place? Is this better for us? And that's really what we're trying to do. One of the parallels that I usually make with this is, think about a castle where you have walls, you have a moat, you have guards. There's obviously doors and windows and entries and pathways, and the castle is changing. Things are moving. It's evolving through time, right? Yeah. So keeping up with all the changes is hard. And similar to the network, when things are, becoming so complex, it is also hard to kind of follow through on all the security aspects. So you're thinking about a bunch of guards that are posted in the castle. They're watching. They're passive. And they're blocking things, and maybe they're letting some people in and some people out, right? What we're trying to do is bring in an army, a friendly army that would safely attack the castle and figure out, how are things going, right? Is this entry blocked properly? Is this pathway properly protected by the guards? And then you do that constantly, and you're able to measure, okay, we had a score of this went through and this didn't go through. We make some changes. And then the next day, you kind of do the exact same exercise, and you're able to say, okay, now this really works. We've patched or we've protected all these different entry points, but you're doing that proactively. So you don't wait until there's an event, somebody got in, you got alerts, now you're fixing this, you're fixing the issue. We're actually proactively fixing it in this case.
So it's like, if we buy a house, you will send in an inspector to find out all the weaknesses or stuff to repair or stuff to improve. So that's basically what you do. My house will change over time in weeks or so forth. So basically, you look at the house, the stature of the house, and say, these are your weak points.
It would almost be something like this, where you have your house, you have a security system with cameras and motion sensors and everything else. Mm-hmm. And I would actually not send an inspector. I'm going to send a bunch of thieves, of people that are professionally trained to steal stuff, right? And we would actually, send the thieves during the day, during the evening, during different times of different situations. And we would basically assess how your security environment or security perimeter is behaving. And then you make some changes, because we were able to get, in the basement and then do a bunch of things. And then maybe add security to the windows there, right? So this is really, we're doing this safely, but again, we're doing this continuously and repeatedly. And that's really the important thing, because if you're able to measure your security posture, you're able to manage it.
Sure. So over time, we see improvements, or what is normal, what is not normal, because we know, this is how you detect bad actors, how traffic flows, what is normal, what is not normal. Question for you, Karim. Security is a very broad spectrum. It comes from all over the place. Bad actors do it one way today. They will do it differently tomorrow. When we consider Keysight, do we need to install or discover an entire playbook, or do we pick stuff? How does it work?
Right. So we bring 20 plus years of kind of security expertise. So going back a little bit in time, Keysight provides already today equipment to test security systems that manufacturers are using today to test their firewalls and so on, where we're able to provide profiles, signatures, threat vectors, and so on. And we already have these signatures and that kind of engineering behind it. So what we've done is we took that whole list and that whole environment, and we brought it out to the production, to more of a production layout, where we are still updating all these threats and signatures on a continuous basis. So maybe every week, every 2 weeks, we're actually going to have updates that are kind of updating to the latest and greatest that's out in the wild, right? And based on that, you can pick profiles and templates based on, let's say, your network, run these tests and get exactly what went through and what didn't. Now, we're actually taking it a step further is once we give you that assessment, we actually give you actionable remediation. What do you need to do to patch this? What do you need to do to fix this? Every steps or every attack that would go through would come with a priority, but also a recommendation to remediate this issue.
So, if I understand correctly, I will say I look like, let's say, VMs, that type of VM, that type of SAN, that type of firewall, that type of IPS, that type of networking, et cetera, et cetera. So based on the experience that you guys have accumulated testing manufacturers, because that's what you did, tested gear, right. Then you build these recipes and Mr. Customer, this is what you look like. Therefore, it's probably how bad you look as well.
That's right. We have built-in integration to the top network security controls and SIEM tools out there. And the reason is because we know the team is busy, right? It's not only important to find a hole, but you want to know what to do to fix it, right? So we're providing these remediation with the report, which just eases the integration a lot, right?
Okay, let's say our IT team subscribes to Keysight in either appliance or SaaS-based or different modes to do it. You detect an abnormal behavior. What happens after?
So there are different things that you could do here. It's a software-based cloud-native type environment, so there's no appliance, and that's why it's so flexible. Now, what happens is you could create. There are kind of two ways to look at it. You can point and shoot. So you can actually say, hey, today I want to run a test. I'm going to go and type it and configure it and run it. And that's what I call kind of manual testing. You can also bring in a scheduler and basically enable these assessments continuously, right, across your enterprise network. Now, in some cases, you can build thresholds and alarms to basically send something or send a flare to the SIEM. So we have the ability to integrate with your existing tool chain, including the SIEM. And then once that's integrated, we can actively create some controls based on what's happening in the network.
So let's say I don't have a SIEM. So basically you could trigger a ticket to the SOC and say, guys, This is what's going on. It's a P1. Because I would imagine that you also rank, potential weaknesses that you find.
That's right. We'll basically bucketize all the attacks that went through by priority. And obviously, we'll have P1, P2, and P3s, and you definitely want to take care of all of them anyways. So
yeah, of course. And I would imagine that since you're cloud-based and it seems very easy to integrate because of recipes, if my network or my corporate environment changes, therefore you add or deduct from the recipe and it's self-healing, self-automation, and so forth.
That's right. I mean, it's a light container-based infrastructure for us, so it's infrastructure agnostic, I would say. We also have a fully managed dark cloud outside of that environment, so that's why we're able to attack safely with the dark agents without being in the way of things. We will attack ourselves inside or try to extricate some information, but all of that is managed as part of our licensing.
So if I were to summarize what you told me, Karim, to implement or take advantage of Keysight, you don't need to be a security expert, right? You just need to understand the kind of signals that you'll be sending, like, guys, this is a P1, you have a weakness here, do something about it. It's the kind of message that we should be conveying to our customers.
Yeah, I mean, the knowledge of the environment. I mean, let's be honest. Threats and security or cybersecurity can be a complex environment. So you need some knowledge of the environment, how it works, the ins and outs, and things like that. But in terms of integrating our solution, managing it, we've had customers that were up within 15 minutes, and that's the beauty of having a software-based environment that is flexible enough. And we made it so once it's deployed and you're running the scheduler, you don't have to man it all the time, right? You can let it do its thing, and it will provide you with the necessary outputs that you need. You also are looking at investing in your security environment. You need more of this, you need more of that. And having the ability to measure in time the performance of the environment gives you more ammunition as an IT team to go to your executives and say, hey, we're going to need to do something here, or we need more firewall or more capacity and so on, because there are more users, there's more traffic, and that's having these data points become priceless, basically.
So if I were to resume as a closing argument, Karim, either we can do pen test that costs us an arm and a leg that freezes in time. That's what it was right. 6 months ago. Or go Keysight way, and this is interactive, schedule at whatever period that you want, and you really analyze the gaps in between testing to discover what is normal, what is not normal, and do something about it.
That's right. It's all about the ability to measure and to be able to compare, the before and after. And the only way to do this is to test kind of continuously and repeatedly. That's the key thing. Is a pen test or a red team. Obviously, these are great ways to secure your environment, and we are not, let's say, going against that or want to replace that. It's really a complement of, hey, our approach is really meant to be more flexible and also automated. Right? Our goal is to be integrated with your environment, so you can actually take actionable. You can take actionable remediation very quickly instead of waiting quarters. Maybe a quarter, or a couple of months, and so on.
Well, what I can assure you and all the audience listening today is that just to get a pen test team these days, it's quite a challenge because these guys are really busy. So you'll be at the back of the bus, basically.
That's right. We've had great successes and great integrations with many customers in Canada. The beauty of this is how dynamic and how versatile our solution is, and it tackles some of the top challenges that I mentioned earlier. The difficulty to recognize attacks, the complexity and the dynamic nature of the environment, and again the limited number of people and resources that are assigned to that environment. It really makes a big difference.
Well, Karim, that was really interesting how we change things, how you change things at Keysight. Thank you for this 15, 16-minute conversation that we had today. Folks, this podcast will be posted on our hub of content at hub.navipro.com, along with all other preceding IT breaks, webinars, seminars, white papers, and so forth. Karim, thank you again for being my guest today. Hopefully we'll have a next time together.
Yep. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure as always.
And folks, please stay tuned, and hopefully you'll be part of the audience at IT Break 53 to come up shortly. Thank you.
You want access to a range of cutting-edge information? Go to our online content area at hub.navipro.com.